All right, now the drone shot has been ticked off. We are moving on to our wide. Now, this should be a fairly quick transition, right? Because we're not coming over here. We're not gonna bring in any of the materials that we've used, right? The neg, the 12 by neg, in something that is going to end up being somewhere in this world, this wide, the neg is gonna do nothing. So we're not gonna bring in the neg. We don't need any of the bounce because again, it's too wide to bring in anything. If you wanted to affect things here, you'd have to go on a significantly longer lens. Like maybe the neg could do something, right? This is 135 millimeter, maybe, but we wanna show a little bit of the size and the scope of this place. So we're gonna stick on the 50 for now. I like this size, I like this placement, I like the things in the foreground over here, the road that's skimming across. Now, if you're shooting cars, you're obviously taking a polarizer with you, right? A circular polarizer that you can rotate. There's a bunch of companies that make great ones. I prefer the Arri one, but there's a circular polarizer, you just go through and that can take all of the shine off of that road because we don't want that road to be too distracting because what happens with the backlight is it will hit the road and depending on the surface, you'll get this bright shimmer effect, this reflection that is not nice. So we want to take that down. So I would be thinking immediately, even before we got here, I'd be knowing, okay, make sure that the camera team has a polarizer in the kit that we can spin and get rid of these reflections, both in the car and on the road itself, to bring it way, way down because it's very, very hot. Here, one thing to remember as we're going through these shots is the increments inside of this program are only stops. So I would probably be trying to set exposure somewhere in between a 2 and a 2.8. Right? This seems a little bit hot to me. I would want that sky a little bit further down. And also the car color. I would definitely, if you're gonna shoot cars or any commercial like this with cars, not go with white. No white, no black. You do not want those because black, you're gonna see all of your little toys inside of them and they're gonna look flat and dead. And white, they're just gonna be so hot. It's gonna be really hard, especially when you're backlighting like this. If you look at the hood of the Range Rover or the hood of the cop car there, it's gonna be very hot, especially with the sun behind it. You're just gonna get immediate reflection off of those things and they're gonna ping right into the lens and there's going to be nothing that you can do about them. I mean, you would have to stop down to, you gotta be in like this region. What is that, 3 stops? To get anywhere near looking halfway decent. You can see it's still blown out even there. So I would be setting it somewhere in between 2.5 is where I'd be setting this up and I would wanna open it up anyway. So I would drop ND, we can't drop ND here, but I would probably go lower down to 200 and then open up to 1.3, just so you lose any distractions from the side of the road, right? We just want elements to shoot through. We don't really want to be distracted. If we go with like a deep focus, those things start to come into too much, they start to draw too much attention and we definitely don't want that. So you might, have a little look around here. We talked on the treatment and in the tech recce, that this is really just gonna be a slow push, just like this, right? Very, very slow and steady, maybe a little bit faster than that. In between, again, you don't really have controls here inside of this program for the speed, but somewhere between that sort of speed and something like that, right? You don't want it that fast, and you don't want it this slow, right? Because you lose that effect. And obviously the longer that you go on the focal length, the more you need to move in order to feel the effect. But I like it somewhere in this world. I like frame right. I like having that pole over there just to have a point of difference. I like the 2 cactus there, the cacti, and the cars as they are. Now, in this situation, the talent has their back to camera in the wide. Some directors won't mind that. Others will, they'll want to position the talent so at least we can see somebody's full face or something like that. Those would be conversations to come up. And for setting exposure here in the wide, what I would do is I would false color on and I would look at the sky levels and I would just determine where I want my sky, and then that sets everything else. You really want to determine what is going to blow out. Just imagine for a second that we don't have white cars, so we don't have to worry about the cars blowing out or anything like that. Really here, it's going to be the sky, and I would use polarizer, and this is again also a spot where if we think more real world camera tricks, in this situation where there's lots and lots of sun going right on the car, coming at the sensor from the road as well, I would want to we're not in danger of clipping the shadows here at all, right? We're in danger of clipping the highlights. So on the normal Alexa, if we're shooting outside, right, you're gonna be set on 800. This is where I would set it to 1600, right? This is that old, the ISO gone backwards trick that takes so long to learn. But you want a higher ISO when you're outside. I won't go into the technical details here, but look it up. You want a higher ISO so it saves you a stop in the highlights. So, right, you're tricking the camera into thinking that it's more sensitive, thereby letting less light into the sensor. So less chance of it actually blowing out in the files. So then in the DI, you can go in and you can balance these levels much more, right? Right away, I'd be saying, let's take the sky way down, way down. Let's get some blue, more blue back in the sky, which you can see if we go here. You want like that level of blue and cloud in the sky, but we want this level on the talent and on the foreground. Well, not on the road section. You know, the road, you probably want to look something like this. But then that talent area, you want something to look like that. So you're just starting to piece together these things. But you can't do any of that if you blow out the sky. So really the main thing here is set it to the sky, set the shot, find out where to be. And I would just get this again, just by, if we switch to walk mode, a little bit faster here. Crawl is not fast enough. Where's our walk? You know, I'm just looking around here. I like the fact that the road cuts through. Again, just creating an angle. Maybe try and open this up. Look for any reflections, like these little glints that are coming off of these plants. I wouldn't be looking for that as much. You know, it doesn't feel great here on the open road. Feels like there's a little bit too much. Unless we were going to use like a passing car, maybe this would be nicer because we could see the car coming and see the car going a little bit better than this. It just sort of flashes across the screen. But for our purposes, I'm happy here, right? We've got the sun coming the right way. It's going to be easy to match for the close-up. It's going to be easy to match for the mid shots. And the car is going to be nice and down. We're going to be able to do some things with that as we move in. This feels like the best shot. So again, depending on the tools that you have access to, I would probably, while we're getting ready for the shot and why the talent and maybe the director is over there talking, I would cycle through a few lenses on the actual body itself, maybe 2 or 3, whichever ones you were thinking. And then I would grab a still like this. And you can do this inside a Q-Take, or you can even do it on the camera. I would ask then to swap it. So we would get a lens change if we go now to this, and let's back up, right, like that. And then take a still of that. And then we get out of this, and we go to the storyboards. And then I would bring this up while I was talking to the director, going, okay, what are we thinking here? Do we want to go slightly wider, or do we like the tight version? You know, it's a little bit narrower, the frame. There's not as much lack of interest. Here you're a little bit closer to the road and it's more open, feels bigger, feels more expansive. Here feels a little bit more centered on this is really their story. And now looking at it, you know, I find a lot of benefit rather than putting it on there and then going to the next lens up. Sometimes your mind forgets what it actually looked like. Here, you can just throw it back and forth, especially if you have a monitor on camera that can do this, like a little small HG that can take stills or something like that. Just look at the stills and go, okay, do I like this one or do I like that one? And this is where it comes back to the idea of curating the image. Give me as many different options and let me decide, let me pick which one I like the best. And for this, even though I thought it was gonna be the 50, I think I actually like this one better. I think I like being back further on the 65 better. So if we come in here, it's like this maybe, but I don't like cutting that thing off. Maybe something like that. Okay. Now we come back to our storyboards. And there it is. I like that one the best. Okay, that is going to be our wide shot. We've got sun out of the frame, most important. Set the levels to the sky, get the placement of the cars, which we got in the drone shot. Make sure we're happy with the placement of the talent, and make sure that the placement of the talent, it actually works for the next few shots, because we know we're gonna have to do the coverage in this exact same orientation. So if they're, you know, if the woman ends up in front of the car, that's not gonna work for the coverage that we need in the afternoon. So we need to bring up those things right away. We need to get the actors blocked in the right spot, knowing that we're gonna be shooting here for the entire day. So that is it. The big first shot is out of the way. We haven't used any lighting equipment. It's just been scheduling, location, and picking the lens and then filling it, populating it with little light to dark moments, right? Going around set, trying to get different lenses on, get options so that when you go through and talk with the director, you are armed with options and armed with solutions. So that's the wide done. Let's move in to the next shot, which is probably the trickiest of the day, right? We get those first few shots on the board, and then we come with the one that requires a little bit of planning, a little bit of movement, lots of reset time. So let's jump in to the second or third shot now with the drone, third shot of the day.